All right, I am walking the Golden Gate Bridge. As I told you, I have to stay in shape, so I am staying in shape. Let me, if I can turn it all around. There you go. Bam. Letting me. Well, as you can see, this thing has some fence now. 10 years ago when I left, or 5, 6 years ago when I left the Bay Area, this thing didn't have a fence. But because there's so many suicides, they decided to put a fence. Millions and millions of people come here all the time to visit San Francisco for this bridge. I have so much grease on my head. I have so much grease on my fingers. But the last time I walked this bridge was, I don't remember, a while ago. So right there is the bay. The bay. Beautiful, right? I can't see. That's the city. That right there, my friends, is the bridge. Super dope. All right, so we are here at Berkeley. It's day 2. This is welcome to Bear territory right there. I think my speech is gonna be close by. That's the stadium right there. I gotta put my paint on, lights on. So. Okay, this is a lab where we're having our thing. Well, hi guys. Now I'm actually coming down to Rosa taking my.
What order do you usually go?
Nothing changes, you know. So instead of using my old lady shoes, now it's the shiny boots. We still have dust from the Fresno Taco Festival. And they're getting ready for take off. Oh, sorry guys.
Oh,
Bad.
Hi, how are you doing?
Athletics and Miss Lupe. The Latino Alumni Association. Lupe, who's a doctor, has been working here for how long? 30 years here in UC Berkeley. So this woman has seen so many students of color, so many Latinos and Latinos being successful. And she just, when you just went to a
We just had a
reunion, right?
it was a 5-day reunion of all of these.
So if you imagine, so I'm being recognized by some tequila, yes. And man, oh, they give me a mug. Ooh, it's Don Ramon, a shot glass. We're gonna be drinking this later. I'm not gonna lie. And then I have this beautiful T-shirt. And I already told you guys, we have accepted here in Berkeley Latinx because the X means is non-denominational or sex, you know, so it's gender. So genderless. So there you go. I'm gonna be wearing this all the time. So if you want to come, and if you want to come to Cal and visit, just come and visit. Bring your kids so they can experience something different. They want to come and get educated. Bring them to Cal. UC Berkeley. I came here. You can come too.
Also, check you one more time. We make sure you can feel what we're excited to share with you today as a part of our DIBJ Latinx Heritage Month. My name is Dr. Ty Douglas. I'm the Associate Director for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Belonging, and Justice. And if you've been anywhere in Calisthenics over the last how many years, you've probably heard the word go beers before. Have you heard it before? We want to introduce to you as we celebrate Latinx Heritage Month. Vamos Osos, but you got to say it with, as we say in the DIBJ office, with some juice. So can we check you one more time? Vamos Osos! Vamos Osos! We're getting there. I want to make sure you see our Director of Athletics, Jim Knowlton. Put your hands together and give him a strong Vamos Osos!
Alfonso, how's everybody? Good? All right, how is everybody? Great. Good. Well, excited to be here. This is a great opportunity as we continue to educate, celebrate, and accelerate, right? So that's really our DEIBJ model. And what we are trying to do this month, this Heritage Month, is celebrate our Latinx community, help us be more inclusive, help people feel like they belong, and I'm really excited. I'm excited to see us show up, and I'm excited for this opportunity. And I want to give a big shout out to Dr. Tyrone Douglas and to Bobby Thompson. You bet. And so I'm really proud to be on the journey with you. I'm proud of the leadership we have in DEIBJ. I'm really thankful for our panelists. I think this is going to be fun. We're going to get to know our panelists. We're going to get to hear their stories, and I really think it's going to help us accelerate our educations and again continue to help us on our journey. So big thanks to our panelists. Thanks to Dr. Douglas and almost Rosa.
And put your hands together. Rosa, aka Thunder Rosa.
Oh, it's my turn to talk now.
Take your turn to talk. Take your turn.
So the music is, very, very good here. Hi guys, my name is Melissa Cervantes. I'm the first in my family to graduate from college. And I picked UC Berkeley not only because it was probably the farthest from my house, but also because it was the #1 public school in the world. And to me, that was very important because everything was against me, just like it has been in professional wrestling. Everything was against me because of who I am, where I come from, and what I was supposed to do in my life. I knew at a really young age that I was gonna be very great, and I was gonna do something bigger than, and nobody in my family has done. I remember folding clothes in this little room watching this black and white TV. I was probably watching some cartoons in English that I didn't understand. And I said to myself, I'm going to learn English, and I'm gonna leave this country, and I'm gonna be successful. And I was saying that I was 5 years old. I remember that moment. And as things progressed in my life, I noticed that things were not gonna be easy. School was not free in Mexico. I had to work. I had to really ask for support with my family in order for me to finish elementary school, to finish middle school, to start high school. High school is when I noticed that I had to work in order to get my education. So when I started working, I was 14 to support my family. My mom and my dad had a really difficult time feeding the 4 girls that they had, so I had to take on 2 jobs to pay for my school and to support them. By the time we were 17, I was able to come to America legally, thankfully. And that's here I learned all about school politics. I got involved in Mecha, and I was really against, being a Chicana. I was Mexicana. I was born in Mexico. So the labels for me were really hard to accept because I was born in Mexico, but they didn't really take me as a Mexican here. I had to pick something, right? So I started learning about Mexican American struggles. So I took a Mexican American class, and that's where I learned that some of the struggles were very similar to some of the struggles that students in Mexico are going through. By the time I was 18, I went to a 4-year college, or 2-year college, sorry. It took me 4 years to graduate, that's what I'm saying. The reason why I went there is because I didn't speak English. I was at level 7 on the test, but my speaking skills were very, very poor. So I had to learn from the bottom to the top. So I had to learn how to speak English. I probably almost failed English 3 times, so I had to withdraw from the class and take it again. So I took my English class 3 times. In other classes too, it was just very difficult for me to understand. I didn't know how to write and how to speak very well. So student leadership was everything to me. I had great coaches and great people that were guiding me and telling me what to do in this process. Because again, I'm learning a new culture, a new language, a new way of living. And during the whole entire time, I had to work to support my family. Because we were living in 1 bedroom, I remember, 1 bedroom apartment. It was my mom, my dad, my sister, me, and then we had a roommate that her daughter. So we had a bunk bed. She slept on the bunk bed. My parents slept in the living room. My little sister and I, who's who was 14 at the time and I was 18, were sleeping on a single bed on top of a queen bed. Her feet were on my face. And I don't want to be here. Like I didn't know the concept of space. We were always on each other's space, right? So the possibility of leaving my area was very, very tempting. I wanted to have my space. I wanted to do stuff on my own. And at the time I met my husband, and he's the one who told me that I should leave home and we should go on somewhere else so I can study and I can go to different places. So I went to UCLA, I picked some different universities, but UC Berkeley was the one who got my attention. I really never thought I was gonna get it, honestly. I mean, I didn't know how to write. I mean, I didn't have no background on anything, and well, maybe because I was the first in my family, I was a little brown girl, maybe the brown girl, I said. So I applied to 5 different schools, UCs. I got in UC San Diego, UCLA, UC Riverside, UC Irvine, and UC Berkeley. And when I got the UC Berkeley letter, I literally started crying. What it broke my heart is when I told my dad, hey dad, I got in UC Berkeley. He's like, okay. But I'm like, what do you mean okay? He's like, he didn't know what it was. He didn't know what it was until I brought him here when I moved. And he realized, dang, this is big, right? So all those years just paid off. Came to UC Berkeley with a broke van. It took us 15 hours to get here because he was overheating. So we had to pour water as we're coming to the bay. And with no money, but just with the hope to be the first one to graduate from college. 2 years later, and after getting involved in student leadership again here at UC Berkeley and in the community, I was working in Youth Tennis Advantage. They have bear tracks here, or they used to before COVID hit. I learned how to work with the community and how to enrich myself with different cultures, because I was just surrounded by Latinos all the time. And the fact that I came here and I was able to meet so many different people from so many different places really gave me a vision of what I wanted to do the rest of my life. When I graduated from UC Berkeley, my parents were able to come, both of them. And I remember sitting there in the theater, watching everybody walk, and I'm sitting there, my husband, my sister, my dad, and my mom were there. And I was just crying. I was crying of happiness, because one major thing that I always said that I was gonna do, it happened. And my parents were able to see it. Here in the Bay Area, after I got graduated, I worked as a social worker in 3 different places. It was Seneca, it was Youth Tennis Advantage, and Thunder Road. It took me 5 years to work with a lot of kids, in the foster care system, kids that were severely abused, and they had no other place than the foster care system. And people like me were those beacons of hope that they can do something with their life. It didn't matter where they come from or what their parents' problems had or nothing. It's just that they needed to work hard and get out of their system. So as I worked in Thunder Road, that's when the itch to become a professional wrestler started. And I went to a couple independent shows, and I compared professional wrestling as the worst drug that you could ever take. It keeps, it hurts you, but you're so addicted to it, you can't stop doing it. Because something about it is the people, is the roar, is putting the makeup on, it's representing someone that you probably can't represent in real life and just make it happen there, because nobody's gonna judge you in the ring until you put it on Twitter. I became a professional wrestler when I was 28 years old. So I left my career as a social worker, and I said, well, you know what, I'm gonna take a risk and I'm gonna do it. I'm pretty much the only Mexican girl doing this in the area. I mean, something might happen, but again, because of the color of my skin, the accent, because I don't have boobs, because I don't look white, it's gonna be very difficult for me, because many years ago, if you guys saw help me out, it's 2019, no, the DX era. You know what I'm talking about? The attitude era. The attitude era that women were having bikini bras and panties matches. They were coming into the ring, getting naked and shaking their ass, and very sexualized. Well, there's nothing sexualized about this one. If I was gonna sexualize myself, was because I wanted to sell sex, not because somebody was forcing me to sell sex. So I always very empowered about my nationality and my sexuality, which I think that's another problem that we have, because we've been exploited. Like, oh man, the Latinas are sexy. Ooh. No. If I want to be sexy, it's because I want to be sexy, not because you're telling me to be sexy. So I always had a little back and forth with a lot of people, and they didn't like that. They don't like educated empower women in professional wrestling. It's hard to be in that aspect. But I noticed like a lot of the opportunities were very difficult for me because I didn't look apart. I didn't look like the women before. I was trying to do something different, especially with the face paint. The face paint was given to me because they needed to attract more Latinos into a show. Lance Rosa from Hanford, California gave me this. And I took it over because it was in my blood, it was in my history that I was gonna become this, Thunder Rosa. Because we celebrate the Day of the Dead when we paint our faces white. That's November 2nd. And the story behind that is my grandfather died watching professional wrestling in Mexico, in Tijuana. My uncle told me the story. He was on his lap, and he's like, you were meant to be a professional wrestler. You were never meant to be a social worker. You were supposed to be stunned people in the ring. And it just blew my mind. And the fact that I was working with all these youth that had so many dreams and hopes, and a lot of them didn't make it. And I remember telling them, I'm gonna be a professional wrestler. No, you're not, Rosa, you're crazy. Don't watch it. And some of them couldn't watch me because they died. Because the police killed them, because of drugs, because of other things. I have them very dear to my heart because they were the ones who inspired me to become somebody that I never thought I would. And then later on, I became the National Wrestling Alliance Women's World Champion, the first ever Mexican world wrestler to do that in the history of wrestling. After that, people started seeing me a little bit more, and then I got an opportunity to work for All Elite Wrestling. I worked there for a while, and I showed them again that I had something, that I deserve a spot, that I was gonna make an impression for myself, for my family, and to the world. And on March 16, 2022, in San Antonio, Texas, I walked, and I remember before I walked, all my family was there. Mariachi, all female mariachi played a Mexican song. This is the first time in the history of wrestling when somebody used mariachi as a positive thing, showing it to the world. Okay, so many people made fun of us for the longest. The storylines were making fun of us when they put mariachi hats on to make fun of our culture. I came that night dressed up as a mariachi, representing what a Mexican person that comes to America and is given an opportunity can do if she works hard. So many people text me after that entrance that they were crying with me, that they felt the pain that I felt on every single thumbtack, on every single chair that I was slammed, on every single time that I was slammed on the cage. They feel the pain with me, but you know what they felt? They felt the happiness that I felt when they raised my hand and I became the AEW Women's World Champion. The first ever in a major company, a Mexican ward. Somebody that is having a fun time. For me, everything's about respect. I was never handed anything. I had to work harder than anyone. And even now on top, I have to work even harder to show them that I belong. Like he was saying, when you're an athlete, when you don't feel like you don't belong, it's very difficult to be there. But when they make you feel like you belong, the world is yours.
So because this is a classroom and we're excited to learn together as a Calisthenics family, we want you to know that we have student athletes who are excited to be a part of this experience. And so I want to also ask that you welcome with me my co-moderator, Jaden Hill. Would you put your hands together for her, please? He is a track and field student athlete and is excited to help to make this conversation happen, our conversation happen. And at this time, we also want to introduce to you our panelists. We have an esteemed group of panelists. We want to first welcome to the front, Cassie, Cassandra. Would you come forward for us, please? Come on, Cassie. All right. More like integrity and like a wrestling, you know what I mean? I want to read her bio to you really quickly, Cassandra or Cassie. And we want to make sure we say your name with all this brilliance. So can you say it with all the juice? You know, I'm saying Cassandra, like, Cassandra, right? I want to give a shout out, even in this moment, she's no longer here at Cal Athletics, but when we say Maria, right, Jim? Maria, there's a power in the way we say your name, so thank you. We're honored to have you with us. She is a third-year student hoping to major in media studies. She's from Richmond, California, but of Nicaraguan descent. I don't know if I said it as beautifully as you can, but I'm doing my best, and I will continue to improve. And she has an interest in social media marketing and real estate. Additionally, Cassie is a member of the Birch drill team at UC Berkeley. Isn't that pretty cool? Put your hands together for Cassie. And let's give our vamos also as well.
Vamos.
All right.
Our next panelist is Lupe.
Lupe.
Come on. We're tagging in the ring. Get in the ring. Come on. You gotta give Cassie some too.
Okay, yes.
There we go. Okay, go.
Lupe serves as the director of the Chicanx Latinx Student Development Community Center. In her role, she advocates for Chicanx and Latinx undergraduate students at UC Berkeley. She also serves as a community affairs liaison and bridge to other communities within the Centers for Educational Justice and Community Engagement.
Awesome. And we get one more panelist as well. Come on. Awesome. We have one more panelist as well.
The next panelist is Ladis.
Come on, it's in the ring.
Ladis is a Cal alumnus and the newest member of the Cal Athletics Fund, serving as the Development Operations Associate. Before joining Cal Athletics and after graduating, Ladis worked at that other school down the road. A true Cal lifer, Ladis grew up on this campus watching his mother walk the stage when she graduated with him in his arms.
Come on. Let's give it a double Awesome.
But I know on this campus, we use Latinx because of the gender, sexuality, inclusivity, particularly around our queer and transgender community. And so we've been pushing that very hard because within the Latino community, we do have a lot of homophobia. And so a lot of the issues we try to address is through that lens. And so on this campus, Latinx is actually very inclusive from the perspective of the students that I work with. And of course, Hispanic is a very governmental term that was imposed, so a lot of people don't like that. But again, it's regional. If you go down to the Southwest, you have Hispano, you have Hispanic, so people will use it. So I would suggest that we don't get really stuck with the names at times because we can't even move beyond that to actually do change and work with each other and just talk to each other to try to figure that out because it's not easy. Identity is fluid. And we need to remember that, and we need to move beyond not being able to talk to each other, which is actually the first one. So I don't know if anybody else has anything else to say.
I mean, to me, last year when I took a picture with all my peers that are Puerto Rican, Nicaraguans, like the Latinos, it was celebrating Hispanic History Month, and then this year is Latinx History Month. So I'm just like, oh, is that a trend? Like, what's going on? But we just have to be politically correct now, and I know that's the term that it was used, and even I had to go on the dictionary, on Google, let me read a couple articles, and why are we using Latinx? It makes sense, because yes, there are a humongous group of people in our culture that are, homosexuals or lesbians, and people need to integrate them. I mean, it's a huge community. I mean, my son he considers himself gay or bisexual, depending on the day, right? He's still a teen, but it's fine. Like I accept it and embrace it. But I see a lot of people from generations, like maybe 2-3 generations back, they're like, oh, he's gay. We gotta accept them. Things are changing really quickly.
I just want to I don't know if others have a thought on this. So if we're listening, because some people are listening, I hope you are taking notes as well, right? But I'm not on my phone just texting people. I'm listening as we grow and educate ourselves. So would you recommend that one should ask someone how they would like to be referred to?
Yes.
Because it sounds like there isn't one answer.
Right.
A lot of people would like, hey, what's the answer? What should I say?
Well, the other thing is just like we're doing pronouns nowadays, and we ask to identify. I think that's respect around how people identify. It's really important. For example, I identify as Chicana because I'm born of Mexican parents, but with a particular political framework in this country.
Yeah.
I love that you talked about the movements on this campus. Berkeley has a rich history of movements.
Yeah.
The Chicano movement was huge on this campus to establish ethnic studies, Black studies. We also had a whole movement with the Black community, the Asian community, the Third World Strike. If you haven't seen the movie On Strike, I suggest you see it, because it lays the foundation for this campus movement.
Yeah.
And so as we ask for pronouns, we should ask also how people want to be identified with ethnically. But you need to understand the historical context. And being at Berkeley has lots of history. And
Yeah.
so I would definitely suggest, I know that on this campus, we started a Latinx Legacy Project,
Okay.
so that there's actually history being captured for
Yeah.
people to go online.
Yeah.
It's not online yet, give me a couple more years for fundraising, to get it online, but it's important that that history and her story exists
Yeah.
for this campus. So, I don't know, the students, your own experiences around identity.
So, yeah, so I mean, growing up, I would always tell I took my second grade teacher, she's like a family friend of ours now, I would tell her like, I'm Mexican like every few seconds. Like, it was something that like my parents made sure I was very conscious of. I was probably reading books about it, right? But when I came to Cal, it was the first time I heard the term Latinx, and pronouns for that matter, and I really just had to like take a step back and just listen. That was really all it took. Kind of the way I grew up, I was used to that going to school in San Francisco. I had many gay and lesbian teachers, so I was used to it, right? But I know for some people it may be hard to adjust. But I'm very easygoing, going with the flow. So the term Latinx, I know my sister now, she's going to school in NYU, so out in the East Coast, they actually use Latine with the E at the end instead of an X. So I don't mean to throw another, I don't mean to throw a wrench in there, but that's why we say it's regional.
Yeah.
Because if you go to the South or the Midwest, they might have their own term, or they might just say, just call me American, right? So like, it really depends on who you, and then it's generational because like Lupe said, Lupe is part of the Chicano movement generation that like, I have an uncle too, who he was in the academic Chicano world.
Yeah.
But Chicano really refers to Mexican American, right? You're Mexican, but you grew up here in America. Whereas Melissa,
Born and raised in Mexico, but in Texas, like the Latinos or Latinx, they call themselves Tejanos.
and sometimes
Tejano. Not Mexicano, not Texan American, I'm Tejano. We're Tejanos, so it's interesting.
so sorry, but it's really a good conversation starter. What it is. Yeah. So it's
You should have that conversation when you're dating somebody. What do you want me to call you? Hispana, Latina, Latinx, Tejana.
But then maybe a coach or staff member who's in the audience should also know to ask, how would you, I want to make this as simple as, like, how should one ask? Like, just, what does that sound like? Like, okay,
When I meet a student, and how would you like me to refer you by, or how do you identify?
how do you identify?
And then you just go with that, and that way I know the next time I'm talking to them,
Sure.
I already know how to,
Yeah.
address them.
or even just ask them like, where are you from?
Okay.
Like, where did you grow up?
Yeah.
That'll obviously you have to know a little bit like more context before, like maybe if you watch that movie, what was
Yeah.
it called?
On strike.
On Strike, you might know about the Chicano movement, but if you know kind of time, place,
Yeah.
you might have a better idea about like, how they might.
No, because a lot of the professional wrestlers, they go into professional wrestling either after high school or very young, they're second generation, so then, school is like kind of like a second thing. For me, was a change of careers. Like, I was a social worker, I was ready to turn in my papers for my master's degree at East Bay. I still have them somewhere in the house. But I decided to be a professional wrestler because I saw that there was gonna be a bigger platform for me to do what I knew I was meant to do, which was to, give my story and encourage and have other people follow their dreams. And one of the questions about how I questioned the status quo was, I started Mission for Wrestling. It's run by females, and I wanted to show to the world why women can actually run businesses, like all run by women. We make the decisions, we're in production, we are the wrestlers, we are the attraction. I heard so many times, well, you guys are not a draw, you guys can't sell tickets. I think a lot of the women that in soccer, in basketball, they are told the same thing. It's because we're not giving the right tools. That's why. We're not. When you give the right tools and people believe in what you're doing, believe me, you will sell tickets. We raise money for our community with women's wrestling. I think we have raised more than $15,000 last year just by having our shows and our fans donating money. I donated $5,000 and I wish it was more for the Uvalde families. I have a great connection now. They can come to my shows for free. And I keep showing and I keep telling big companies, women can draw. Invest in us just as much as you invest in the men. We will, and we can do this. Doesn't matter what color skin we are or whatever. If you give us the right tools, like how the tools that I got here at UC Berkeley, I will be successful. Just give them to me. Open the door for me so I can open the door for other people to be in my shoes too. Para el... Recuérdame que estoy tomando fotos para qué.
Tijuana Innovadora.
Tijuana Inovadora. Paseo de la Fama. No sé, Tijuana. Ya con esto, con el mural terminado, que no me había podido haber tomado fotos desde mayo. Entonces ya vine ahora sí con el título de nuevo y ya bien así, bien presentable, como debe ser, como viéndome como la mera, ¿verdad? Esta es mi fotógrafa del día. ¿Cuál es tu nombre? Claudia Talavera. Claudia Talavera, ella me está ayudando a verme preciosamente hermosa y me vas a quitar todas las fotos. She's gonna Photoshop me, so that's good. It's all good. ¿Te ocupas? ¿Te gusta? Vamos a poner
y podremos hacer, a ver si se puede, sin el premio y que te veas acá el fondo y que sea como un saltito, como algo que se ve en movimiento, como que sí. Allá están las diputadas. Sí, puede ser. Ponte un poquito más al medio. Ahí. Nada más que sabes que amor, me traes el otro lente, el más largo. No flasheó. No flasheó, ¿verdad? Sí, flasheó. Ah, ok.
Tengo el cura.
¿Qué se siente estar perteneciendo este año y qué se siente que ahora en adelante las personas, tanto que vean esta entrevista y que conozcan tu historia, se van a poder inspirar?
Bueno, pues todo el mundo quiere estar en el Paseo de la Fama en Hollywood, ¿no? Pero me puse a pensar cuánta gente que ha vivido aquí en Tijuana, que vive en Tijuana, que trabaja toda su vida, ¿verdad? Se le ha dado un honor como el honor que se me va a dar a mí. Yo nada más fui a hacer algo que me llenaba de felicidad, que fue diferente, que me ayudó a encontrarme a mí misma, no como tan de rosa, sino con la mujer que soy, Melissa Cervantes. Me ayudó a encontrar la fuerza que yo siempre sentí que necesitaba cuando era pequeña, cuando estaba en la Lázaro Cárdenas y mis papás me dijeron que no podía jugar soccer o fútbol porque tenía que trabajar. Una compañía gigantesca como la Escuela de Wrestling. Tengo más propósitos en esta vida que solamente un campeonato mundial. Si se me da otra vez y puedo ganar ese campeonato de nuevo, si lo pierdo, adelante. Si puedo ganar el otro campeonato de mujeres que está ahí, adelante. Pero hay muchísimas cosas más que para mí que nada más ser luchadora. Yo soy una mujer emprendedora, soy una mujer de negocios y siempre ando metiendo las manos en todas partes, ¿no? Yo quiero empezar a cantar, yo quiero empezar a actuar, que es lo que ya estoy haciendo. Vamos a empezar a hacer otros negocios que también vienen con las redes sociales y por eso te digo, nada más no te quedes atorado en un sueño.